And if your yelling moves to calling names, and if your calling names moves to cursing, and then if your cursing moves to spanking, that may be the problem and not the child.
Today we are here at the Child Development Program with Miss Judith Brooks, and she is a parent educator as well as a family counselor. Good day, Judith.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us. Tell us a little bit about what the Child Development Program is all about.
The Child Development Program is a program that's mandated to serve children from birth to 4 years old.
Let's get into that 2-3-year-old age group. Now, is there something that is to be said about these quote-unquote terrible 2s or, terrible 3s?
Okay. Well, I try to redirect people in their language for this age group. Is it terrible? I don't think so. Does it hold trepidation? Yes, for some. But I think when we reinforce in our thinking terrible and awful, I think those words set us up.
Yes.
And so I think we need to change the language, because what in fact, in reality is really happening, the child is simply developing and moving through the stages and ages of development.
So what's some of the behaviors that we should expect from that age group between 2 and 3?
Well, by age 1, we have Little Explorer. At 1, just even prior to 1, they begin to crawl, and they're crawling, and they're opening cupboard doors, and they're being redirected from the stove and the furniture and various things. But that is the age and stage of the exploring for the child.
Right.
And it should be expected. And if it's expected and understood, I think we would probably have a response for our children that would be less sharp.
Right. More appropriate.
Yes. And at age 2, then here comes the challenge. We have the boss. The description is the boss.
Yeah.
And what's happening at age 2, the child is beginning to emerge with their independence. So they're finished exploring, they're up off the floor, they're not holding on to the furniture to move around. They've got legs, and those legs are powered. And so with the empowerment of their motor skills and being able to walk now and steady on their feet, they feel a sense of independence. And so off they go, and they think, now I know what I'm doing. Now here comes the challenge. Mom says, I need to help you to understand what needs to happen here. The boss simply means the emergence of independence. The boss is the term that's used loosely. It's not the boss where the child has the verbal skills to boss people around. It's that the child now needs limits, boundaries, and nurturing. So during this stage, what we should be looking at is, what are we observing? What do we need to learn here to help this child? And in our observation, we should begin to understand that the child needs limits, because now he's finished exploring. Now he has some semblance of independence. He needs to have some limits. He needs to understand how far he can go and how far he cannot go. And that's where the challenge begins. With parents are more required at this stage to be consistent. And it is the consistency that the parent brings to the environment of the child who is in the stage that will make all the difference for them. All children require a plan of action. The plan, you need to decide what time you need to be at which place. For instance, when you rise in the morning, teeth being clean, and breakfast and dressing. So have a gauge of time of where you want to be, right? But if you have a plan for that in your own mind, it is easier for you to know to have a guide to help you to stay on task. Because sometimes it's not the children, sometimes it's the parents who are not on task. They are having difficulty with consistency and don't always have a plan that rolls out with consistency, but that makes sense for the age and stage of the child's development. Right.
How does temperament play into toddlers?
Yeah, you raise a good point, but it's not just the child's temperament, it's the parent's temperament, because I think what I want parents to be aware of is their temperament is reflected in the environment and is modeled perfectly for the child to reproduce. Some of us as parents need to look at where our emotions are in the midst of a difficult situation between, the child and themselves. Case in point, you may in the morning want your child to start dressing themselves. That's your expectation. And so if you're yelling and if you're short and if your yelling moves to calling names and if your calling names moves to cursing and then if your cursing moves to spanking, that may be the problem and not the child. You see? And so when parents start to lose control, that's when they need to seek out assistance.
Right.
And assistance doesn't mean a full-blown counseling program. We offer parenting classes at least 6 times a year. And we have parenting classes that will teach parents about the development of their child, that will give them a good grounding in what to expect with each age and stage of development. We have a parenting class called 1, 2, 3 Magic. And this parenting class focuses on behavior, purely on behavior. Not the development of the child, but purely on behavior. And the concept is counting, and the counting 1, 2, 3 before you call the child on timeout, but you have to have the child understand what the expectation is before you start the counting. I had a parent in a social situation last week who said, do you remember me? And I said, sorry, I just don't remember you at this time. And she said, well, let me just say this. The children were screaming in the car, and I just pulled over the car, parked the car, and turned off the engine. And my husband said, really? We're just going to sit here? And the mom said, yes. When we did the class, Ms. Brooks said, this is what we should try. And she smiled and said, 2 minutes later, I was starting up the engine and ready to go.
Okay.
Right? So coming to a class, getting the understanding of what you are actually experiencing.
Or added skills.
And added skills, right? And having an environment where you're with other parents learning at the same time. So not only did she get that from the class, but I'm sure there were parents in that class that spoke to what they do and what they try and what's not working for them.
Right.
So just sharing in that experience can give parents confidence as well.
Right, so often we as parents feel isolated in that, what we're dealing with, and sometimes having a class, like you say, can expose and feel like, I'm not the only one out there dealing with this. One other thing I would like to ask you is as a parent, when you have your child out in public, and Bermuda can be quite conservative, and it feels like people are always looking at you to make sure your child is that little angel. And when they do have an outburst at a moment, whether it be at the grocery store or some event that's on, and you start feeling that embarrassment, how can you as a parent deal with that, without seeming off the top yourself?
I think I would encourage parents to do 2 things. The first thing I would encourage them to do is to remain calm. They need to remain calm. If they escalate as the child's behavior escalates or increases, they will lose control just by not being calm. Sometimes you can pull things into control just by remaining calm. And in your remaining calm, you're offering the child a response that they may not be expecting. That's number one. Number two, I have also in classes or in speaking with parents given them some options. So when they have a child who displays public behavior like that, I've recommended that they actually do some trial runs. With parents who are seeing me just for parent support, I've asked them, where do their children kind of have their tantrum throwing experiences in public? And when they've told me the supermarket or the grocery store, I've asked them to come up with a plan. And the plan sometimes looks like this. Where do you shop? And at the place where you shop, where is a time in the day that's not busy in the store? Actually sit down with your child and get a plan going. Offer the child maybe $10 and say, we're going to the store and we're buying a loaf of bread and maybe box of milk. And you're explaining to the child that you're going to the store, and you're talking to the child and you're saying, and today I want you to go in the store, take me to where the bread is, where the milk is. And if you can hear what I'm saying engage the child differently. And this is a teaching opportunity. So those that have done it, they have found that they have enjoyed it because it becomes a pleasant experience where the child would take them to the area, or they're reading the signs, trying to find out where it is. And in the exchange of giving the money to the cashier and coming out, and the child's achievement is that with self-confidence and pride, that it gives the parent a sense of accomplishment, that they've had a teachable moment that went very well. But what did it do? It lessened the opportunity for triggers. And most times the triggers may be because we are in such a hurry and we need the child to move fast. And if the child is tired or hungry, then the irritability goes up, and then your irritability matches the child's irritability. Your expectations does not match the child's expectations. And there is where you can have what you're describing as a power struggle. I think it's not necessarily a power struggle. I think it's an opportunity to teach a child about conflict resolution, even at age 2.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks, for being here with us, and thank you, Child Development, for sharing so many wonderful tips with us. I hope that parents will find this really useful and helpful.
Well, you know, we want to say thank you to you. As we browse through your magazine, it's a wonderful resource for parents in Bermuda. And we're really excited to be partnering with you and just to be able to share with the public what's here for them, what's available. And so we thank you too.
Thank you, Judith.